Joining me now, Congresswoman Lucy McBath, Democrat of Georgia. Congresswoman, first, thank you for joining us. And before we get into what's happening in Georgia with its new voting maps, yesterday the Texas Supreme Court paused a lower court ruling granting an abortion to a woman whose unborn child has a fatal condition and is unlikely to survive once born. The mother is already about 20 weeks pregnant. Your reaction, please, as abortion becomes more and more of a political issue ahead of the general election.
Well, most certainly. I did see that story on television, and I was absolutely heartbroken over first and foremost, the woman had to make those kinds of decisions and choices. I don't ever think that anyone can truly understand how painful it is to make those kinds of decisions. I myself have had several miscarriages and a stillborn, so it's always difficult, and I always have believed that those decisions should be made between the mother, her loved ones, and her healthcare providers. So I think increasingly with the breakdown of Roe across the country, we're going to be tasked, our doctors and our judges will be tasked with these kinds of decisions far more frequently. And I just still firmly believe that a woman should have the right to choose what's best for her body. I'm sure there are cases like this that are happening all around the country that we haven't even heard of yet.
Yesterday, your state passed a new congressional map, effectively erasing your district, after a federal court ordered the state to add another majority black district. And Republicans did so by dismantling your majority non-white district in order to maintain their 9-5 edge in the state's congressional delegation. You vowed to fight it. Democrat-backed groups have as well. I remind my audience, this is not the first time Georgia Republicans have targeted you, Congresswoman. What do you want to say about this?
Well, thank you, Reverend Al, because, you know, as you said, just this past week, the GOP-controlled state legislature here in Georgia once again approved maps with one goal in mind, just to remove me from Congress. This is the same legislature that gerrymandered me, 2 years ago in the last election. And after a federal court actually struck down or ruled against these maps, Georgia Republicans are using this as another opportunity to try and throw me out of Congress. But the fact of the matter is that I will just do and say exactly as I always have. I refuse to allow a few of the extremist Republicans in our Georgia state legislature to determine when my work in Congress is done. I will let the people decide. I'm a mom on a mission, and there's a lot of work yet to be done, and I am going back to Washington.
Now, talking about a mom on a mission, President Biden met privately yesterday with members of the University of Nevada at Las Vegas community after this week's mass shooting on the school's campus that left 3 people dead. Congresswoman, when you and I met first, you were grieving the loss of your son, Jordan Davis, who was shot and killed during an argument over loud music. And I felt he was targeted. That was 11 years ago. And in 2023, it just set a 17-year record for killings, mass killings, in fact, in the U.S., according to the Associated Press. Watching this week's shooting as a mother, a gun control advocate and activist that you've been, and a member of Congress, what needs to happen, Congresswoman?
Well, Reverend Al, so much more needs to happen. As I will say, there has been a great deal of good work that has been done these last 11 years that I've been in this fight. As of now, President Biden did, by executive order, create the Office of Gun Violence Prevention that is working very closely across the nation with our state legislatures, our organizations and community organizations on the ground that are doing gun violence prevention, and just a lot of good work. We've passed red flag laws. which was, of course, my work. We've passed background checks in Congress as well, in the House. But so much more work needs to be done. But the fact that we passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Law, which was the most comprehensive gun safety legislation that's been passed in this country in over 30 years, shows that we are on the right track. Over and over again, Americans have been, as they're surveyed, they've been stressing that, we have to do something about this extremist culture that we're living in. I truly believe that, keeping guns out of the hands of people who absolutely should not have them is number one. That is key. There are a lot of people that are, for whatever reasons, are in crisis, and we need to be able to identify those individuals, give law enforcement the ability with those loved ones and their families to be able to identify these people that are in crisis and make sure that they don't have access to guns. Also, individuals that have been considered domestic abusers. And safe storage is critically important for our children. The number one way that children are dying in this country is because they have access to unsecured firearms. So there's not one piece of legislation or policy that changes all of the culture. There will be many for years to come, but we really are on the right track.
And you've been a driving force behind that. And when I say activist, I know what I mean. I first remember meeting you on an airplane. You were a flight attendant, and you said, Reverend Al, what are you going to do about my son, Jordan Davis? And the whole trip you were signing me up to deal with that situation and look at all of the things you've driven as you say, an activist mom. Let me bring this up to you. Congress is running out of time to pass a military aid bill before Christmas. Senate Republicans this week rejected a package with aid to Ukraine and Israel and $20 billion for border security. What can you tell us about where these negotiations stand at this point, to your knowledge?
Well, Reverend Al, the American people sent us to Washington to serve their needs. And the best way that we can do that is to make sure that there is a bipartisan pathway forward for government funding. There's so many essential services and programs that the American people are really depending on, they rely upon. And so we cannot allow there to be a lapse in any of these services or any of this funding that our allies around the country are depending upon. I will say that Democrats, we've been behind our leadership the entire time as they've been working to, work in these negotiations. But we do need the Republicans. We need the majority of them to join us and come to the table and to help us in serving our constituents and avoid, these kinds of shutdowns and lapses in funding. Republicans just need to stop playing politics with the livelihood of the American people and the allies around the world that are depending upon us.
Congresswoman Lucy McBath, thank you for joining us this evening. Joining me now is my political